And the reason the blindfolds and the level of security, like I never knew where that place was until I left in the back of a police car.
Which we still have
we'll
to get to.
We will
need to
get to, folks.
But like
so it was 9 months in a somewhat unceremonious end. Dun, 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 dun.
that
Go
was
on.
just the beginning. Before they started taking me out after 9 months,
Right. Okay.
and but I still went in and out of the blindfold
Still went in on a blindfold.
every time.
Okay. Every time. Still on that level.
Yeah, until the end. And the reason for that was
All right. Well, welcome to the Jug Dealers podcast. We are back. This is kind of, I guess, our official, really first episode, being as we got the
we got the banner.
up.
Yeah. Feels official.
In studio today. We're really psyched to have, my good friend, Kind Bill, but not just my good buddy, definitely one of the pioneers in the industry as far as modern day extracts. And, we're celebrating actually the birthday of Live Resin here on the 14th. It's 10 years, I think you were saying.
Wow.
So we figured it'd be appropriate to bring Bill in studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Not a lot of times, one of the things that we definitely wanted to highlight on the show is some of the legacy guys, some of the guys who've been in it a long time.
Yeah, some of the culture stuff.
For the longest time, a lot of these guys weren't able to talk about a lot of the stuff they did because it was taboo or they were trying to get jobs or whatever. But now that we have,
or they were locked up.
Yeah. Or they were locked up.
I mean, I'm not laughing, but seriously.
But now that we have
all the above.
or all three, and, now that we have, and Bill's actually going to get into that because for a long time in the industry, Bill kind of had to pseudo operate, kind of like ghost operate. But now that we have social equity, that's starting to change. So without further ado, let's kind of dive into the Kind Bill episode. So, first things first, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you grew up and
where you grew up,
and just your story young before cannabis as a kid.
Sure. I'm a Colorado native. I was raised in a family of academics, both my parents were teachers. I ended up in South Florida at middle school age.
Yeah.
Which, obviously is turning point for everybody in their lives, but
very much so.
Thrust into a completely different culture and way of being into the world. And kind of tripped into cannabis pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Fell headfirst into it, did you?
It sure did.
Yeah.
Well, this is early 80s.
Yeah. So I moved there in 1982. I was born in Colorado Springs, grew up here in Denver.
Yeah, I remember you say you grew up on Green Mountain, right?
Yeah. Funny side story. First time I went over to Nick T's house. He lives in like my old hood. And I was like, man, I trick-or-treated at your house when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, pre-cannabis, I was into two things in the world, maybe three. I like to read. I like to draw, but I was largely attached to a BMX bicycle if I wasn't being forced to do something else.
Green Mountain's a great place to do that.
Yeah. And that, that was also one of those, probably how I early intersected into smoking weed was with a bunch of BMX punks in South Florida.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's just like we were talking about on the way down, and even just the connection with cannabis and extreme sports, and even cannabis in MMA now, and just kind of really how pervasive it's got. But at a time like that, that was it was definitely more alternative. So you were going to have to see it at the skate parks, the BMX parks, a little bit more of your fringe type activities is where you typically found cannabis. At that time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had kind of an unremarkable school life. When I was 15, had already been smoking for a little while. I started trying to grow this plant. And you want to go to like first smoking experience?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to move this just a little closer.
So-
yeah, there you go. Perfect. Thank you.
My first time that I actually got high, not that I smoked a couple.
We've had that happen, right? The first time you smoked and first time you got high, not necessarily
Right.
the same time.
Yeah, it was the third time.
Your parents being academics, they weren't dope smokers, right?
No.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
The
Okay.
first time either of my parents ever saw weed, it was in my bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But you got to think about the time that they were out of, though, too, right? That was
Oh, yeah.
like pre, and I'm not trying to necessarily ditch here, Bill, but, my parents, I'm 40, right? So my parents were a little bit more a product of, the 60s and 70s and whatnot, where
Right.
I'm assuming your parents were kind of that decade or two before that, where
Absolutely.
cannabis was not part of the culture.
It's not Christian,
Mhm.
and that'll, there's a lot of context behind it that faded away after that for sure.
Sure.
So I had smoked some Mexican brick weed a couple of times out of a Pepsi can. Didn't really work. And then one of my really good friends, older brother, came back from the Navy.
You're 15 at this time?
No, I'm like, this is earlier, maybe 13.
Okay.
13, okay.
And he had I'll never forget, he had a 71 Mach 1,
Yeah.
72 maybe.
Yeah.
First year of the big body.
Yeah.
And he had this little jar of oil that was legit hash oil from the Mideast. He just
Yeah.
came back from the Navy. And we were smoking it in some terrible brass pipe for sure.
We all
Doing donuts in the rain. And I'm in the back seat of this V8 muscle car,
high.
real
high.
And at some point, the steering wheel came disconnected from the steering shaft, and he's like,
No.
in a flat spin.
No.
and he catches it. But this is literally the first time I ever get high. And
Right.
It's oil high, guys.
Yeah, right. At a time when hash oil wasn't even any of the vernacular.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
maybe some pressed hash, some pressed keef or something like that. But I would think like a true hash oil. I mean, the fact that you actually saw that then, you had to be such a small percentage of people that actually saw that.
In the United States, for
Yes.
sure.
This is
And
mid late 80s too,
Right.
I mean,
hash oil meant then that it was oil made from hash. It actually meant that they had taken hash and extracted it down further. It was very, very potent. The chase was on.
Oh boy! Come here, dragon. Come here.
And I know a lot more about the chemistry now behind all of this, why it worked for me in the way that it did. But like clearly, I have a lot of endocannabinoid receptors, and maybe not making a lot of my own.
Sure.
Because that was the most normal I'd ever felt in my life to that point. And I was definitely, left turn Clyde, that where my life just went in a different direction.
Right.
Where it was
that was a fork in the road.
Yeah. It was assumed that I was going to be like the next Dr. Finger of some like English department or whatever it was
going to be. Right.
Right. And I started buying High Times probably around that same time. And that was like, had to be hidden in my room. Sure. Like mom couldn't find that. Probably around 15, maybe even 14. I started trying to grow the plant. I grew a plant in like a coffee cup, sit outside my window on the air conditioner. Mom found it, killed it. Planted some plants around the edge of the lake on the golf course. Somebody found it, killed it. Like once the first time I did that, then I just kept trying to do it until I actually grew.
Until you finally grew some weed.
Yeah, the bug.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that feeling.
Yeah. Most addictive thing that I've ever participated in.
That's funny. I was just going to say that cannabis may not be addictive, but growing it sure as hell is. And when working with the plant and that life endeavor, and of course I could say that about plants in general, just being the mystery that truly plants are, and being an autotroph, creating their own food. I mean, I just can't get over that fact. It's such an amazing fact that they can sit there in one place their whole life, do everything, make their kids, live their life, grow up, die, make their own food, never move. They're incredible.
Amazing. and it's a two-way street that I found out really quick. Right? There's some interaction going on there on different levels.
Big time.
That being said, at 16, in a random occurrence, met a guy that was quite a bit older than me, later 20s, who was from Canada. I was working sometimes as a commercial fisherman at the time, on weekends, at night, mullet fishing, doing, South Florida.
Yeah. Hustling.
And was tiptoeing around the smuggling world. And I met this dude who was crazy. And I was probably the equal crazy to me. The first time that he was like, "Wow, you're crazy," and I'm like, "Dude, you're crazy." We ended up becoming,
I don't know, man. You're crazy.
I kind of would say I was his sidekick.
Sure.
Because I was a kid, and I lied to them, him and his older brother, how old I was, and I kind of fell into this Canadian smuggling ring.
A legend.
I mean, look, here's the thing though, you're talking, at this point you're talking what, like 86, 87, yeah. I mean, I can definitely speak to the fact that there was some smuggling going on down there at that time. I mean, I know some people from Philly. We've discussed that story where there was some big stuff going on in Florida. I mean, that's where it was a lot of stuff was landing. In the United States.
I mean, even that whole genetics, the whole genetics argument eventually kind of got squashed and was like, what do you mean it all came from Florida? Like, what are you talking about? It ended up in California, but where do you think it came from? All the South America,
a lot of stuff came
South America highway.
It might not come from Florida, but it came through Florida. Through Florida.
All the guys that's like, it only makes sense. Right? All the guys that were smuggling high quality cannabis 60s and 70s, they ended up in Florida in the 70s.
Right.
Because that's where there was money to be a smuggler.
Sure. There was money to be a smuggler. There was, geographically speaking, you had a shot over, you put some good money in a boat, you put it in a small airplane. Absolutely. I mean, dude, I just flew from Colombia to Miami. It was a 2.5 hour flight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you start looking at it and you go, damn, geographically speaking, Colombia's right there.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. I haven't done that flight to Colombia, but in a small plane from Jamaica, that's a fucking terrifying flight.
Oh, I can believe that.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I wasn't in a plane circle.
Yeah.
There were pilots around us. These guys were boat guys.
Yeah.
Mostly sailboats. But a lot of Americans don't know that, like, pre the West Coast weed scene blowing up in Canada, there was no weed there. They smoked hash and oil. You know what I mean? And like their commercial, like the equivalent to our brick weed was this Jamaican weed oil. And that was what these guys were into and were pretty good at. They had,
they had their process.
Yeah. They had been expats from Canada at that point already for a long time, had largely been in Jamaica and South Florida, grew a lot of cannabis in Florida and in Jamaica. As things started getting hotter and hotter, like by the time I came on the scene, it was near impossible to get stuff across the water. They were on everything.
They were on it.
I mean?
They were on it.
Just getting.
And you're like 16, 17 at this point.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
Well, yeah. Because you got to figure what was that the crabfish. That was 77, right? When they popped that.
Yeah. When you're talking about pea buds.
Yeah. That was so, which would make sense. So if you think about that, 10 years later. They were on it.
there were like, so back up a little. I commercial fished out of this little place called Chokoloskee Bay. Pre-1984, I think something like 80% of the cannabis, probably all of the other drugs that came from that part of the country came through that very small community. They were crab fishermen and mullet fishermen. And there was always a freighter in the Gulf somewhere that they were offloading onto shrimp boats. Shrimp boats offloaded onto crab boats. Those crab boats draw like 10 inches of water, can hold 10,000 pounds.
Right.
So, and then that's what Peabud's group used.
It was great. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Edge of the Everglades.
It's
you know,
it's
on
so wild the
southwest
way
side of Florida.
it's so wild the way, like, you know, we obviously went down to Peabud's last year. You obviously know Peabud, and it's wild the way the stories all do tie together. You know,
Well,
like
yeah,
they're like, you talk to enough heads like yourself, and the
It
stories,
eventually circles back
They
around.
corroborate, man. They all.
Well, we know like how much overlap there is now, right? This industry is a lot bigger. Back then, everybody actually knew each other.
Right.
You know
right.
what I mean? It was tiny. And that's why the weed game was cool then. There weren't like guns and other things that were associated with that because it was such a small circle. Nobody was really getting ripped off. I'm sure outside of my realm that was happening, but it was a different.
Yeah.
There was
an honor code back then.
There was a pretty.
We talk about that all the time.
Your
you know?
reputation wasn't for sale. For any
Tribute to
price.
Paulie.
Yep.
So go ahead, man. Talk about keep going.
So these guys, they had been growing some really good weed outside of Fort Myers, Florida. These two brothers that I kind of had fallen into their group, and I literally had like a 4-hour conversation with the older brother, who was definitely the brains behind the operation. And he'd largely been growing outside. I'd read everything in print about indoor cultivation at this point. And they were like, you want to build an indoor with us on our farm? And I was going to go out there, and the original plan, I was going to go out there, help them build that indoor. And me and the younger brother were going to go do like a 2,000 plant guerrilla grow in Canada. And we were going to see playing it out. We were going out there to make seed, build the indoor. And that, you know, things changed. The younger brother ended up getting killed. I did not go to Canada and grow weed. I stayed in South Florida on this farm, which the buy-in there was give up my life, put a blindfold on, go on a 6-hour car ride into a place that I didn't leave for 9 months. And I got to grow weed.
But that was the stipulation. That was
it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And,
Like when you say you didn't leave, man, like you did not leave for 9 months.
I didn't leave that property.
Like you did not walk off that property. They brought you food. You showered there. I want people to understand that, because this was
in a tent in a swamp in Lee County, Florida, with 5 dogs.
There was a fence. There was a fence.
Yeah, it was very secure. 14-acre property. Yeah, and you know,
greenhouses.
No, old school keyhole gardens. We cut tunnels through the canopy.
Okay.
Below the tree canopy, and then had big hole, you know, like 50-gallon holes.
Dude, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
It's pretty cool. And then there were like holes cut through the canopy so that these plants would get sun throughout the day.
Yeah.
But you could have a chopper on top of you, and if you weren't moving under there, they wouldn't be able to see it. The canopy was thick.
Right. And again, you're cutting holes, so you get some here and a little bit here and a little bit here. But if not directly over top, you haven't cut this big gaping hole right.
So
over the top.
you had like
bink,
little
bink.
gardens kind of spread around the property,
all over the property. And then there was, when the guys bought the property, there was an unfinished house on it, like 2,800 square feet.
So a decent sized house, yeah.
So, you know, we had 30 lights of flower in the house,
which at this time is bananas.
Yeah, it's big.
Bananas. Like we look at 30 light. I mean, that's like a third of a bedroom for me.
Sure.
You know, and
89.
like, yeah. And like in 1989, like that's so, were you guys jacking power?
No, we had commercial power there.
About to say commercial ag power out there is cheap.
Yeah,
cheap.
Yeah. Nobody even looked. I mean, we burned the drop to the house. Like the main power came in to like this pole barn or whatever, and then there was a drop from there to the house where the grow was. We set that fucker on fire a couple of times. And like again, guys, you can't like call an electrician.
No,
not a thing. We found some dude that would let us blindfold him and bring him there.
I mean, do what you gotta do. This is 1989, folks.
And the reason the blindfolds and the level of security, like I never knew where that place was until I left in the back of a police car.
Which we still have to get to.
We will
need to
get to, folks.
But like
so it was 9 months and a somewhat unceremonious end. That
was just the beginning. Before they started taking me out after 9 months.
Right. Okay.
And but I still went in and out on a blindfold every
time. Okay. Every time. Still on that level.
Yeah, until the end. And the reason for that was we weren't even like as afraid of the police. Like that time, South Florida, there were crews everywhere.
That's what I was saying. I would be thinking Jack and Cruise, man. That's what I was.
We were worried about we weren't worried about getting arrested. We were worried about somebody coming out.
I mean, 30
and
killing us too. Yeah,
you're talking 30 lights back then at a pound of light that was worth $5,000 a pound. You know.
Well, and like I said, into a lot of those types of groups, it was like they weren't going to leave you around. They weren't just going to steal your shit. They were going to slit your throat at the same time.
So after the 9 months, they started taking you out of there. What was going like? Where were they taking? Like? Yeah, I was gonna say because at this point they know you're a G. They know you're in. You're hard.
But it was still very like Uber controlled. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I was not really free.
Right.
The experience with the plants.
I mean, there's no cell
kinda,
phones. Do your parents know where you are at this time?
No, I didn't talk to my mom for a year and a half.
I've been there, so I've been there. Not quite that level.
I did end up getting a cell phone out there in 1990. The old
big dogs.
Yeah. My dad was
a
a drug dealer, so he had one of those. He was Did you have the briefcase one?
No, the one right after that.
The big gray one with the big antenna and stuff. Yeah, I know that phone.
And I had the very first like flip phone too back then. Man, it was like $2 a minute.
Yeah.
Steep.
Yeah.
But
the drug, it was a popular, my dad was a drug dealer. It was a popular thing among the drug dealers.
Go figure.
So they started like taking me to lunch.
That's nice of them.
Yeah. Oh, hey, how about a sandwich? How about a sandwich?
We had about 4 acres of like heirloom vegetables, cool herbs. We grew some lychee. So there was this Thai restaurant that bought all that stuff from us that dude was buddies with. And we would go there while they were closed in the afternoon. This is where like my whole food thing started too, man. The guy didn't want us coming in there smelling like weed. So he was like, come when the restaurant's closed.
And I'll hook it up.
And eat the family meal. Like whatever they're having in the kitchen.
Please and thank you.
That was like 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
Where I was getting out to spend a couple of hours at and just the highest level food. So yeah, that kind of all turned into what it turned into. The guy that brought me there was murdered. And then at that point I did actually feel a prisoner.
That's like, so now it's like very matter of fact there.
Right. I hate to make assumptions here. I'm assuming as a part of the operatings and dealings around that situation.
Yeah. I mean, the guy had a drug problem and was a very like dangerous person.
Gotcha. So he put himself in dangerous situations and he got burned.
Because he was so dangerous, somebody killed him because they were terrified.
Got you.
I mean, but they did murder him.
And I didn't mean to laugh, but it's like that's the crowd. That's the crowd you were rolling with, And the only reason I say that is I'm familiar with my dad growing up. They told stories about shooting guys and throwing them out of moving cars. So it's like that was a time where stuff was just different. You know?
Right. And that's yes.
Stakes are real, man. In Florida, they put you away forever.
Right.
Just for growing this plant.
I still
and that's if you didn't get robbed or murdered.
I still hear that everybody in Florida carries a gun.
It's Florida, bro.
I know that's what everybody says.
I would assume.
Well, here's the thing. I would assume it. And if that's not the case, then feel lucky.
I would behave as if somebody were strapped if I was in Florida. anybody that I was dealing with for sure. So, as they started taking me out, I built trust. The older guy had not been doing any smuggling for quite a while. And that's a whole nother addiction on a different level. You want to talk about getting high, being sober, doing crazy shit with thousands of pounds or hundreds of pounds of an illegal substance is like an adrenaline rush that I haven't met.
I still always tell people the most scared I've ever been is with 50 pounds in a duffel bag with a state trooper next to me.
Well, yeah, sure.
So he, my dad died and a bunch of stuff happened where he like kind of started taking me under his wing in a different way. He started taking me to Jamaica and we started doing these cruise boat trips, which were pretty rad. And I would travel with this older guy as his son. And we would pack like hash oil back onto the cruise boat while we were in Jamaica, do around 50 pounds.
Jesus.
And start going on cruises like every 6 weeks. Man.
Bro,
that's fucking cool.
That's like so much hash oil. I mean, it's a lot of hash oil about today's standards, let alone 1980 anything.
They had a still in the jungle in Jamaica where they were making thousands of pounds, most of there's like many different grades of weed down there, but it's mostly like ditch weed that's quasi cultivated, but feralish.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what all that oil was made out of.
Man, that is just crazy. Like, it's so wild to think about.
Yeah.
Because you guys, I mean, there couldn't have been many people doing this.
I don't know, man. Not a lot.
Not to where you were going anyway, especially.
No,
but
there definitely weren't any white guys out there. And like I said, this older guy that kind of brought me into this, he was a G and he was a legit chemist. He'd been on the run since like 73 or some shit. He was the real thing, you know what I mean? Like
Sounds
the
like it.
real thing.
I mean,
I was introduced, like, I knew him as like 5 different names.
right.
Never, and he ended up being codependent of mine in a case. I never really landed on what the fuck this guy's name was. And I went through a federal indictment with him. He is,
Wow. I mean, that's crazy.
Slippery character for sure.
So how did you go from,
Well, how long were you on the farm and how to the point where things obviously unceremoniously?
I was going to say, how did you go from moving stuff from Jamaica to incarceration?
Well, they're kind of related, and that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Is like,
Fair enough. Makes sense.
we started spending a lot of time on Jamaica. And in fact, he was almost always in Jamaica, and I was almost always on the farm by myself. And I was a kid, man, and I liked to party, and I wasn't as responsible as a person should be with that kind of stuff hanging over.
Oh man, with that kind of responsibility added, that is huge. Huge.
And there were some plants that I should have transplanted one time the day before. Like our full season stuff, we vegged it still inside. The days are short in South Florida, right? So
Sure.
We went out first week of July and would be done first week of September. They go right in flower, especially if you vegged them inside. So I had some early season plants, like in the transition between indoor and outdoor. Maybe 6 plants, kind of tall. And then I also had my head stash from the spring crop finishing. Another 12 plants, Well, head stash plants needed to be down for sure because everything's green. And you got sativa leaves that are 18 inches across.
Right.
That are yellow.
Yellow, very yellow.
You can see that from miles and miles away.
Okay. So we've got real ripe plants, plants.
Like,
So that whole canopy thing wasn't working anymore when the colors weren't matching.
No, in early spring,
right.
finishing plants was kind of a little butt clencher. And man, I have to admit it. That was 100 on me. I was like, I'm going to push these a couple
I
more
mean,
days.
not for nothing. You were like a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, 20.
20.
But I was
yeah.
like, I was
yeah.
chopped. I was chopped.
And like you said, you were, I don't know, I'm assuming you probably partied for a couple days and things got pushed and yeah. Okay.
All the things happened.
All those things.
Yeah. And so, I made myself a sandwich for lunch on a normal day. Knew the second I heard the helicopter,
We got problems.
how low it was. And I had not heard one that low before.
You knew they were coming.
And I was like, oh man.
Doesn't sound good.
As I was smoking the joint, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, I really feel like I'm at one of those moments where everything after here is going to be different.
Oh, fuck.
Like it's going to be a new context.
Oh, wow.
Moment,
And you probably didn't know just how true that was actually going to be. Go on.
So, I could see the guy had fucking Adidas shoes on when he came over.
Holy. So, I mean, it's literally, you're like, oh, hey.
He's hovering over my patch of head stash that's finishing. And I'm trying to knock down the plants that are under the eaves in the transition.
Oh, no.
And he gets right on me. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I go hide in the woods.
Well, yeah.
And I get on the cell phone and I tell dude's girlfriend, who happened to be out there at the time, was doing my laundry at the laundromat.
Uh-huh. Don't go back.
Hey, we're getting busted. You can't come back.
Don't go back.
Tell homie we're on that level. Helicopters. And
we're chopper level. Don't go back.
Then I spent like 7 hours on a standoff trying to destroy evidence and fucking not go to jail.
Jeez.
Right. Well, fair enough. But
yeah, I mean,
odds are against you. You're in a swamp in South Florida. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do?
And eventually they started, they told me they're going to shoot my dogs if I didn't come over the fence. That was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. That was your only companions for quite some time. So
I went over the fence and they took me to like South Florida level of stupidity.
They didn't blindfold you on the way out.
They didn't blindfold me. They had no idea what was going on. And the officer whose car I was in the back of, by the time he took me to the station, had been working for like 18 hours.
Oh, was still wet behind the ears.
All the detectives were on my property, high-fiving and chopping down plants. This dude didn't know what to charge me with.
That's back in the day too, when it was like, this is like a $4 million bust type thing,
Yeah. No, I mean like front of the newspaper, all over everything the next day. But at this juncture, this guy didn't know what to charge me with.
He didn't know his cultivation. He had no idea.
He wanted to go home. So he was like possession of marijuana over 28 grams.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that.
And that's it had an automatic set bond for that offense at that point. I bonded myself out for like $2,000. Fucking disappeared.
Bye-bye.
No, it caught up to me. I was on the run for a long time. My mom talked me into turning myself in. It turned into a major Fed case because of the international nature. And
so obviously they didn't just show up randomly to the farm.
They were looking for us.
Yeah, they were looking for you. And they knew the Jamaica connection. They knew or had an idea.
It was super weird. They were looking for specifically me because of something that had happened between somebody that was tight in my old time crew that rolled. And it was like the fourth time he'd gotten caught with a small amount, but he was a really small kid, like 5'3", and getting sent to Florida State. I can't hate on him.
Right.
I'm not, back then I bad things happened, but he told them all of our cars and the general, well, it takes him 3 hours to get here type shit, and that was enough. They went out and started looking. They didn't know that this other investigation on the Jamaica thing was the same thing for many months.
Right. They didn't even know.
Yeah, they put it all together eventually. Obviously, mistakes start stacking when you're on the run, and when you think you're going to go to jail, maybe, and your friends
And
are
you- and
rolling
dude,
on you.
and
right.
You know,
Right.
Not for-
Yeah, I'm out.
Not for nothing, bro. You were young,
I was a kid.
you know?
The older dude started making mistakes. He fucking sent like 60 packages of oil to 30 different post office boxes all up and down the east coast of Florida. Same exact package, same exact writing, blah, blah, blah. They got him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And somehow
kindergartner could pull that one off.
tied his girlfriend to the property and yada, yada. Next thing you know, we were in big fucking trouble. You know, that saved my life probably.
What, getting arrested?
Getting out of there. That kind of ends only one way, man.
I was about to say that's kind of like one way in, one way out. You know what I mean? Kind of
Yeah.
scenario. Unfortunately, when you know that much and over that amount of years and everything, it just starts seeming darker and darker and more dangerous. And
100%. And I was like, although a tough kid, always kind of a hippie, you know?
Right.
I'm like eating mushrooms and dialed in with this environment.
well, like you said right out the bat, you're like, I come from a family of academics. You know what I mean? It's funny because even one of the questions I have, like, are you a reader? And if so, what are you reading currently? Because it's one of those questions I like to ask people. So I thought it was really interesting that you identified yourself right off the bat as being from that environment. You know what I mean? And admitting now that I wasn't some, I was a tough kid, but not some hard ass that had been, brought up in this life that was necessarily ready and willing to do some of the shit that was going to need to be done at some point.
Yeah, totally. It just was like, wow, you keep walking into a pool, right? And then all of a sudden you're standing on your tippy toes.
Ruh-roh.
And somebody jumps in the pool and the water goes right up your nose. And you're like, fuck, I'm in over my, whoa, what's going to happen here? And that kind of happened to me in slow motion over 3 years on that property.
And so that was the time period. That was one of the things I was going to ask as well. So you there about 3 years, didn't leave for the first 9 months. We're getting allowed off of that, but it all came crashing down 3 years into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And,
how long did you end up, how long was the bid? How long did they have you in timeout?
I did just under 5. And then I did.
Man, that's a long fucking stand. man.
How long were you
In-
running? At what point did they catch up with you? And we don't need to go in a whole bunch of detail on the
Yeah, it was, I lasted about, I guess 4 months. I turned myself in. My mom was like, you're going to fucking get killed out here. And if you go back,
Mama wasn't wrong.
if you
Mama
go
wasn't
back to
wrong.
Jamaica, they're going to kill you the second you get to Jamaica. Because that was my plan, was to get to Jamaica. And she's like, they're going to kill you if you go to Jamaica. Why
Yeah,
would
that's
it?
some
Why,
heavy-
why would you-
why,
yeah,
the-
it's like-
why the
that
hell
is some
would
heavy-
he kill you?
Folks, he was a kid. He wasn't thinking straight.
But but honestly, one of the reasons we have you on the show, one of the reasons that we kind of wanted to dive into this is because, any of these 20-year-old kids nowadays, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but any of these 20-year-old kids out nowadays that are getting into weed, they would never have to deal with anything like this. Or this,
No,
this and this is the craziness that a lot of people, for me, I was dealing with Canadians
Sure.
in Canada, so
Right.
I wasn't dealing with the crazy.
It's a different. Canadians aren't Cubans. Okay.
And it's definitely
Or
one of the
Jamaicans
things
or-
that I want people to understand the levity of that, because there's a lot of us that your ass was on the line. 5 years Fed. You were
Yeah.
you in Fed.
We did
5 years in the Fed.
Well, and here's
not
the thing,
in
guys.
state-
You
not in
gotta
state prison.
Think
It's a
about
big
this,
deal.
right? There's a lot of people that are regular users of cannabis now that have never used cannabis outside of legalization.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
100%.
Like that,
100%.
and that's, by the way, we're over 10 years into it here in Colorado, so that's a decent portion of the consuming population, at least here in Colorado at this point. So
A
it's kind of
huge
a
amount.
right. So isn't that weird to think? Have never consumed cannabis at all illegally, right? Weird to think, especially when you have, you talk stories like this and you've been through, some of the experiences, whether it's the personal experiences that we've all been through or some of the experiences that we know, our colleagues and our, and our friends and associates in the industry have been through. So, okay. So 4 months, obviously pain in the ass, running, not a way to live.
Yeah.
Mom says you're going to get yourself killed. Mama's right. Mama's always right. You go in, you do your bid, you get out. So this is mid 90s when you're out, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I have 4,000 hours of community service. I had a couple $100,000.
How many thousand hours are typically in a work year? Is it like 2,000?
2,000.
I was going to say, is that
Work year.
2,000? I think is that okay?
Yeah.
This is what
Yeah,
put
so
that in
2
perspective.
Right.
2 years.
So
Yeah.
Straight of 40 hours a week, essentially, if you were to do that.
this was the
Wow.
setup that they put me in, right?
Right.
I had 8 drug tests a month,
Oof.
5 scheduled, 3 surprises. I had to have a job. I had to be in school. I had to be in therapy. And I had to do community service.
Wow.
And I was
You
like,
literally
man,
had no other time to do
I was
anything
like-
but that stuff.
I am not getting off parole without being clever. And I got to start like my hustle. So like I found a dude that.
Hey, once a hustler, folks. Once a hustler. Let's be honest here. He's like, there's no fucking way I can do all that.
No fucking way. I don't have that kind of bandwidth. So I found this cat. This guy had all these big cats that he rescued. He had like a wildlife refuge.
Yeah.
And he wanted a trailer that was like a cage to take this Florida Panther that he had around.
I mean, that makes sense. It is
Around the-
Florida, folks.
around the fundraisers, right?
Florida
And-
man.
And I'm a
I'm down.
fabricator, welder, something that I self-taught, but my closest friend at the time had a trailer shop. And I was like-
Ding, ding, ding.
so I got my boy Matt Up's puppet to make a trailer for me, and this guy wrote off my community service. Cost me a couple $100 of material.
Okay, so that's 4,000 hours. I mean, was anybody paying attention? I mean, no offense, but like, who was like, you just come in and you're like, yeah, it was fast, man. I've been working for like,
I turned it in weekly.
okay,
I-
so you did the
with
full
my-
time on it.
with
But
my
still.
report.
Boom,
But I
but
banged it. I was like, I'm done.
that is amazing. Okay,
I'm
so
done.
4,000, that's a big monkey off your back.
And honestly, I still wouldn't have gotten off parole. And people that know me know that like I'm a principled person and I could cut my own face off if I get into some splitting hairs over principle thing,
Sure.
which happened with my parole officer. We got into a war.
Oh, you
Like, this motherfucker
you were
hated-
screwed.
hated me.
Screwed.
And then I filed a sexual harassment writ on him. And they were like, oh, you're going to fight with us, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
you're one of those, are you?
But his supervisor had been my parole officer for a short period of time. He knew I was a smart guy, that I wasn't an asshole. And he came to me and he was like, he pulled me in and he was like, look, dude, you're not going to get off parole in Florida. Straight up.
He's like, I'm just going to be real honest with you right now.
Not going to happen. He's like,
You need to go to another state.
don't you have family in law enforcement in Colorado? My stepmom worked for the FBI at the time.
You're like,
And I was like, yep, I sure
You
do.
know.
And so
now that you mention that.
I came here and finished and managed to actually get off parole. They actually were like, this is for weed?
God bless Colorado.
Literally. yeah,
Right,
like,
right.
are you
Even then,
fucking
even in the
serious?
mid 90s, they're like, this is crazy.
Are you fucking serious?
That's why I moved here.
So,
That's why I moved here.
you know,
I was like, it's less crazy than a lot
Hey,
of other
look, I
places.
picked up a lot of tickets and time in different little states in the Midwest. So
Nice.
I packed the dog and the
Nice.
girl, and my younger brother graduated high school. And as soon as he got out of high school, I was like, you're coming, we're going home, dude.
right.
And, yeah.
So that's late 90s, right? Okay, and obviously we know what was going on in Colorado at that time, all over Colorado, lots of stuff, in the mountains and in various canyons up the Front Range,
Fort Collins, Nederland, Boulder,
Risk Canyon,
Breckenridge,
Left Hand, yeah,
Jamestown, Gold Hill,
Never been
yeah,
there.
yeah.
all those places,
all those
Rollinsville,
places, yeah.
all those places, man. I mean, that
Yeah.
was, I said this last week, let's not, a lot of people discount Fort Collins from that time. But one of the things that was awesome about Fort Collins was that's an ag school. And you got kids growing dope up there. So, I mean, Colorado was definitely cranking out the heat back then, dude.
Well, it was, and you had what was interesting
The
too, and what Bill can really attest to, I'm sure, is that pre-legalization, you had a very tight-knit group of growers. Specifically, I'm talking about Fort Collins, by the way, although this is not a model that is abnormal across the U.S. You got a tight-knit group of growers up in the hills somewhere. They're all looking out for each other. They're able to pretty well keep people away and at bay for a number of years. A fire happened is what happened to Risk Canyon, really knocked all those guys out. But before that, you had a small group of growers that's what they did, and they were very good at it.
Yep.
They did a small variety of strains.
AK
They had maybe
blueberry.
2, maybe 3, and they knocked them the fuck out of the park. So your average bag at that time was really, really high quality. Then legalization happened and everybody and their grandma started growing, and your average bag of herb actually went down significantly for quite some time.
Yeah, man. In 2010, at the beginning of this whole rush, right?
Yep. Which is really when it started. So that was when, just for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah.
So legalization actually happened here in 13, I believe. Or sorry, 12. It happened in 12.
You talking rec?
But yeah, so
14.
Rec did. Yeah. I think Rec was actually 12 because it's been over 10 years.
Yeah, we passed it.
Yeah. But before that is when all the cards started happening, all the medical, which was, like you said, 2010-ish.
Well, and
that's when it kind of,
like we
the doctor's offices started happening.
well, and
all
like
that,
we
yeah.
like to